Thank you very much. I sure appreciate the opportunity to be able to visit with y'all this afternoon. I was asked to cover the risk management tools that are available to forage producers here in Texas. And before starting, I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of Risk Management Agency of USDA in their development of this presentation.
That entails going over the pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance programs and the non-insured disaster assistance programs that are available through Farms Service Agency, part of USDA. Yeah. These programs, if you just take a look at it, particularly the pasture, rangeland, forage program, are a little bit odd if you don't know kind of the background on them. But as you recall, back in the year 2000, there was a considerable amount of concern over the ad hoc disaster programs that had been part of them provided by USDA to crop and rangeland producers over the years. Back then, we had a balanced budget, and it was something of concern. So in 2000, the Agricultural Risk Protection Act was passed, and it was mandated to cover both pasture and rangeland, and it was designed to take the place of ad hoc disaster programs. Y'all remember the old drought assistance programs that we had, where you could come in and file generally through Farm Service Agency and get help on buying feed, programs like that. One of the big knocks on the program was it took a long time for producers to get their money, and the other one was that they couldn't budget for them. They just kind of happened and literally took an act of Congress to get it done. So in the Ag Risk Protection Act of 2000, Federal Crop Insurance Corporation was mandated to come up with a couple of products to help producers of pasture and rangeland deal with disasters. So in 2007, two pilot programs were put into place. One of them was a Rainfall Index program. That's the one that's available in Texas. And the other one was a Vegetation Index. And since 2007, over those 5 years, the program's expanded. It's still a pilot program, but it's available in most of the states in the southern Great Plains here, with the blue being the Rainfall Index and then the Vegetative Index program being in the green. Like I said, this program, if you look at it, particularly compared with other programs that are offered by federal crop insurance and non-insured crop disaster assistance program, is quite a bit different than the other crop insurance programs. There's good reason for that. Those programs that are, most of the programs that are administered by federal crop insurance cover multi-perils, and they insure losses on one specific producer's place. Now, there are not a whole lot of folks got enough information to establish actual production history over a lengthy enough period of time when you're talking about grazing, even or forage production, to put together a program like that. So folks kind of had to start thinking about what are we going to do? We're up against this mandate to get this deal done. So what was decided on was that a program that could be feasible in the amount of time they had was put together what's called a group risk program. This Rainfall Index program does not insure against shortfall of rain on your particular place. You don't have to keep records in your rain gauge. It's a group risk program, and we'll talk about the area that is of interest to you here in a bit. Now, it's also offered through existing crop insurance companies. So you can go to different private crop insurance providers. They'll all be priced the same. That's the way federal crop insurance works. The premium you pay will not vary from company to company. And these companies basically compete on service. Or they can give you a hat or rain gauge or whatever is part of the deal. But it's, once again, doesn't have anything to do with forage that's produced on your particular place. In this program, there's two types of land, both grazing land and hay land, that can be insured. And when you get right down to it, that basically you can basically tailor this program to almost an infinite level of coverage or coverages for your particular place. And by breaking out part of it in grazing land, part of it in the hay land, you can look at different premium that have to be paid and also different levels of indemnities. And your crop insurance agents will be more than happy to help you with that. But what you are insuring is you're insuring against a shortfall relative to a long-term average that was put together using National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's data that's collected by the Climate Prediction Center. And this long-term average, we say how long is it? It goes back to 1947 or 1948. So it's a long-term average. Why did they use a rainfall index approach here? Like I said before, the reason they had to use it was they had to come up with something pretty quick. It was infeasible for folks to come up with actual production information to develop actual production histories on their place. So they went to what was basically a common source of information that was pretty verifiable, and most folks would argue that rainfall is highly correlated with forage production. So that's how we got to a rainfall index type program. Now, these the indexes broke up into 2-month periods, and the intervals start with the first day of the month and run through the last day of the subsequent month, and you can stagger these intervals to a degree, and that's the time periods that you're going to cover the shortfall is a percent of average against. Now, single peril coverage. If the army worms get you, if it hails, if it burns off, if it's flood, doesn't matter. It's just whatever the index does within your area of the land that's covered in these grids. Now, these grids are 0.25 degrees of latitude and longitude. They're about a 12 by 12 mile area. They are the basic unit that puts together a group in this group risk policy. The reason that this varies considerably from other federal crop insurance programs where the insurance is done on a county-by-county basis. And the reason for that is there's a lot of variation in county size. So when you're going down to a group, if you were just going to insure within one county, well, it's bad enough something like Nueces County, but say you go out to Webb County, much bigger county, bigger geographic area, you know, you could even within these 12 by 12 mile grids, you'll get an argument on how much rain actually fell. So that was why the grid system was instituted there. Basically trying to make a system that would be meaningful to producers and allow them to transfer some of this rainfall risk. And these grids do cross county and state lines, and we'll take a look at it here in a minute. Like I said before, one of the arguments was that we'd be able to tie this back to a particular level of forage production here theoretically. That's not the way it works in practice. Basically what happens is that a producer can insure in evenly within 6 of these 2-month intervals. You can put a majority into one 2-month interval and a less amount into other, or any combinations thereof. But you have to select at least 2 intervals, and we'll take a look at them here in a minute. And based on the growing conditions here in Texas, the decision was made by federal crop that you could only put a maximum of 50% of the acreage to be insured in any one of those 2-month levels. I think that was probably actuarial in nature, because they didn't want to run the risk of folks just loading up there. Now, as to deductible levels, you can go from a deductible of 70 to 90%. So there's a lot of flexibility within this program to select when your indemnity is going to trigger, and that's whether it be at 70% of long-term average for a particular period, or 75 from 70 to 90% there. You're also not required to insure 100% of your acreage if you don't want to. So you have a lot of flexibility there. One of the things that up until this year that was important, though, was in the 2008 Farm Bill, there were some very good programs set up to help producers in case of disasters, and one of them would be the Livestock Forage Disaster Program. That did not particularly end this year, but the federal government didn't fund it. To be part of that program, you either had to have one of these pilot programs, be insured under it, or you would have to have the non-insured crop disaster assistance program. Kind of like the mandate on the health insurance, same sort of deal. Well, if you get together with your crop insurance agent, or if you want to take a look at this on your own, you can go to this grid locator to start with. The information's in the handout, and basically type in the name of the closest town. In this particular case, pick Laredo, and it'll pop you up here. And then you can get a little bit closer to where you want to go. This is around Casablanca here, happens to be grid number 9123. After you get to your place, it'll tell you exactly what your grid number is, and then you can go and start looking at Yep. Well, I hate to
It was just big.
Yeah. Here we go. I bet Pete's doing that. After you get your grid, just enter the grid number there, and you can start selecting off of insured crop type, whether it be grazing land or hayland, or coverage level. And one of the things that you can do is come back and look at these actual historic indexes over time. These are the 2-month things that I was talking about going across the top. You can insure in a January-February period, or you can split it into a February-March period. But after you do that, you can't lap over periods. So you can look at any particular year that you want to look at. So say in this particular situation, we wanted to look at what a grazing land insurance program would look like at an 80% coverage level. We've got a protection factor. If we think our acreage is a little more productive than some other folks, or more productive than the average, we can bounce that level up. In this case, we increased it by 15%. The practical effect of that is increasing our coverage level. So if an indemnity does trigger, we're going to get paid higher. And your insurance agents will go there. They have different theories on this. I don't know for sure how good they all are, but taking a look at this, maybe bouncing it up. But it can go as high as 150%. You put in your share here, how many acres you got that insurable, and look at a particular year and a particular strategy. So say out of this, I got 1,075 acres. If I wanted to put a little over half of the acreage in the March-April time frame, half in the June-July time, 375, and then another back here in this particular part of the year. This little tool will tell me, okay, what's my policy protection here? A little over $9 an acre. It'll tell me what the total premium is. In this case, a little bit less than $2.40 an acre. How much Uncle Sam pays for it? In this case, $1.23 an acre. What it's going to cost me on a per acre basis, and then once again, looking back in history on a year-by-year basis, it'll tell me what my indemnities would have been. So in this particular case, as dry as it was in early 2009, this indemnity here would have triggered in this March-April period. Because of the shortfall in precipitation, we only got 17.2% of our normal, and I was triggering at 80%, so we were 62.8% shortfall. it would have triggered an indemnity, in this case of $7.11 an acre. What in fact would have happened was that they'd have netted out the premium of $1 an acre and sent me a check for $6.11 an acre and gone on from there. The indemnities are used to offset the payment, so I would have never wrote federal crop a check in this case. Once again, as you can see, it's very flexible. You can tailor the level of protection to the amount of money that you want to be exposed to as an indemnity. I mean, as spending as a premium here. There's probably a pretty decent chance that you won't be on the hook for that much money. But if we get better than normal rainfall, much like we did in 2010. I would have been writing Uncle Sam a check for $1,075 more than likely. And that's one of the things that folks need to know. But kind of in summary here on this Rainfall Index program, it's a relatively simple program after you take a look at it, but it is a group risk program. It's not based on rainfall that occurs at your particular place. It doesn't tie back to production in any way, shape, or form of hay or rangeland. And you can tailor that program to fit your particular risk management needs. And if you want to go to this site right here, which is in the handout, you can look at all the information plus the decision support tool that we took a look at there on those screenshots. The other product that's available to you is a multi-peril product through, once again, your local farm service agency. It's a non-insured crop disaster assistance program. It is like the old federal crop insurance, or most of the federal crop insurance programs, where you do establish an actual production history over time, and then you are paid relative to the production in a particular year if there is a shortfall against that actual production history. And it's basically what's called catastrophic risk protection, and that's set at 50% deductible. It's going to trigger and pay at a 50% deductible on 55% of the established price. But as opposed to shortfall and rainfall, basically drought, freeze, hail, flood, hurricane, any kind of natural disaster. But you can contact your crop insurance agency whether crop's insurable in your county. It's not just rangeland and pasture. But if it's not available, you got to go to Farm Service Agency to get it. It's a three-step process. You apply for coverage. Most of this is done around the 1st of December of the previous year. If you suspect you have a loss, you have to file a notice of that. And then after the loss is determined, you have to make an application for payment. Like I said, most of these for next year, if you want to participate in the program, you have to get with FSA by December 1st of this year. There is a flat rate per county, so in this case it may be a little bit cheaper than the Rainfall Index program, but the record keeping and the information that you have to supply is considerably more burdensome. You have to build over time this actual production history. Sales slips, those kind of things, if you're selling some hay or actually getting bale counts, or what you pay to custom harvester will do for the production data. Like I said, if you suspect a loss, you've got basically 2 weeks to file that notice of loss, and an adjuster will come out. You'll be paid on 50% of a shortfall from 50% of your established production and 55% of the price. This was the Nueces County example from 2009 on hay here. The expected yield, the transition yield for Nueces County on hay spot, 5.27 tons per acre. That year, the established price the USDA had for hay was $68.83 an acre. I'm talking with a guy that had a 40-acre meadow. Once again, this is the deductible that triggers. What we would have been expecting for a yield was 105. They got about 80 tons. So there's 25.4 tons shortfall there that they would have been paid on at 55% of the $68 a ton. And we got $24.04 an acre in this particular example that they were working with me with. We rounded the numbers a little bit. But that's the way it works. Once again, it didn't matter if it rained on his place or not. It ties back to actually what they produced. So it's more of a traditional program. It's depends on what happens at your place. You have to provide more information, and you have to do it in a timely manner. The Rainfall Index, as opposed to the Rainfall Index program, it's a single peril deal. You don't have to look at the rain gauge. You send anything in. That information is established by the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Those records are kept. I hate to say it's a black box, but it's a pretty black box. We've tried to take a look at some of this. If it's short, you get a check. If it's not, at the end of the year, you'll have to send them some money. But one thing that I would point out, that even though these livestock forage disaster programs weren't funded in the 2008 Farm Bill, there was an insurance requirement with it. There will be a new Farm Bill. It probably won't be done this year when it should have been. But down the road somewhere, in the off chance that these disaster programs, which I think were very well designed, do come back around, there will probably be an insurance requirement with it, and we'll provide that information as it becomes available. That's it.
Question? There's one question. Can folks have both NAP and rain index?
The question was, can folks have both if they want? Non-insured disaster assistance program and the rainfall index program? And the answer to that is yes, if you want to. Because, like I said, you're not double insuring against a single peril. The non-insured crop disaster assistance program, it doesn't insure rainfall. It's just triggering on a shortfall in production due to an insurable causal loss.
Any other questions? Is there any funding for the NAP this year? My neighbor last year insured his hay grazer, and it failed. He did not fail the bale, and they said there was no funding. So, is there going to be? Is it worthwhile to go to the FAs this year and say I'd like to insure my hay grazer at a crop?
He needs to double check on that, because they'll probably get him the money at some point. Yeah.
Well, I'm just because I was going to do the same, and
that's really news to me, because we get it at home. And we've never run into that.
Well, they came out and surveyed.
Did the
those bales of hay grazer? He made 107 bales, 25 acres in 2010, 2011, and he was expecting a check in November, and they said there wasn't no funding.
Well, he should get his money eventually if he had an insurable cause of loss. Should get it at some point.
Get the money eventually.
That's not good. We've had losses in our home place up there, and it paid.
I was just curious because they said it all depended on the farm.
Yeah.
Now this thing here, that livestock forage disaster program, there is no money for it, but it's a different deal. It's not what you were talking about.
No,
right? Yeah, you're talking about the non-insured disaster crop.
Yeah.
They should. That's a deal. That deal's a deal. When you sign and put the money down, and he should get his money at some point.
Other questions?